Welcome to Just Break Up, the podcast about love, heartbreak, and all the relationship advice you don't want to hear. My name is Sierra DeMulder.
And I'm Sam Blackwell. And today we're going to answer a letter from somebody who is struggling to let go of hope. But before we begin, we just want to give you our Surgeon General's warning, which is that Sierra and I are not licensed mental health practitioners.
Right. We are not professionals. We are not trained in this. We are only here to offer our humble musings to hopefully shed some understanding and maybe some laughs about the incredibly rewarding, but mostly confusing experience that is love. So please take our advice as you see fit. All right. I'm going to dive right into today's letter. It is from GZ, whose pronouns are he, him, and who is writing to us from London, UK. Hey guys, so I'm a recent new listener to the podcast, and I firstly want to say how much I enjoy it. It has been so good to listen to you guys talk on my long drives and in those moments where I felt like I needed someone to distract me. I've recently gone through a breakup after 3 years of being in a monogamous relationship with Elle, she, her. We went to the same school, kind of knew each other, but only many years later bumped into each other in London and started hanging out. This turned into a romance eventually. We shared a beautiful love full of fun and adventures and also intimate. We eventually moved in together and made a home away from home. Sex was always good until it wasn't due to mismatched libidos. She always wanted to, but I started to fall into patterns of comfort and feeling like I didn't need it as much. Cut to November of last year, and she tells me she slept with multiple men over the course of our relationship and has kept it a secret. She comes clean to try and start a new chapter in the relationship where she can be more honest, but obviously she's broken my trust. I try to forgive her, but the cheating has strained the relationship and we end up arguing a lot. A few months of that, despite an amazing holiday, and eventually she says she can't do it anymore and needs a break. It feels like a breakup and we're both devastated. I move out and we grieve the loss separately. We're on good terms, but it makes it almost harder to not want to talk and look for reassurances. It's been over a month and I expressed my desires to give it a go again, but she says we need to move on from each other and focus on ourselves for a bit before we can even think of giving it a go. Right now, she feels like she can't be in a relationship and wants to be on her own. It keeps hurting, and I don't know how to let go because I still believe we can be back together. And she's led me to believe that too, even though right now she says the opposite. I don't know how to navigate this. I really believe in couples being able to meet again and make it work into a healthier and happier relationship, but holding on to this hope is also painful. And every time I seek reassurances in our future with her, she shuts me down.
All right, GZ, thank you so much for writing and for trusting us with this question. I'm really sorry that you're in this situation where you have faced infidelity, have faced cheating and sort of been surprised by what your girlfriend or your ex-girlfriend shared with you. And then to fall into these patterns around mistrust and fighting and all of that, right? Like that is such a difficult place to be in, especially when you're trying to forgive somebody and it just feels like it's not available to you. And then also this like kind of, it's not even like an end. It's kind of like a fizzling, like a whimpering out of a relationship as well. That can be so hard. And not having the clarity around like, is this over? Are we getting back together? Can we get back together at some point? Like that is just such a challenging place to be in. So I'm sorry that that's what you're going through. And I really appreciate that you came to us to look for some support and some guidance on that. It's really meaningful. So we're going to get into talking about what you can do to help figure out how to navigate this hopeful and hopeless situation. And we're going to do that in just a moment.
All right, my darling, thank you so much for writing and trusting us with this letter. As Sam said, I know you're going through it right now, and I know from personal experience on both sides of this relationship what a really troubling and hopeful and hopeless and confusing time. This can be in a relationship where you are on a break or you're done, but there's been talks of reconciliation and you don't know where you stand. Like there's no moving forward when you're kept in this middle ground. And I want to confess to you that probably the biggest relationship regret I have in my life is that I kept someone I loved in limbo after we separated for quite some time. Mm-hmm. And I did that because I thought it was the kinder thing to do, because I genuinely loved him and wished that we could make the relationship work, but knew somewhere deep down that I didn't want to be with him and just didn't know how to say that. You know, this is pre just break up time, pre talking about how to be in relationship with one another and have hard conversations. You know, mm-hmm. This was probably the peak of my life. This was probably when I was at my peak anti-conflict, right? And so how do you break up with someone when you want to avoid conflict? Well, you keep them in the gray area because it feels kinder, right?
Right. Or you act out in the relationship by like cheating on them with multiple people and
exactly.
Right. You know what I mean? Like not necessarily, I don't know what's happening in this relationship because I'm not in it.
Yeah.
And I'm not your girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, whichever term you're using at this point. Right. But like, that's also something that we do too. When we're struggling with conflict is like, oh, well, I'll just get them to break up with me, or I'll show them sort of indirectly how upset I am by doing things that are harmful to me and to our relationship as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I regret that so much for myself and for him because I kept us in the gray area. He held on to hope and I held on to a ton of self-loathing and guilt. Mm-hmm. And I didn't let myself move on fully because I thought I didn't deserve it. And I didn't let him move on fully because I couldn't do the kind and honest thing and say, like, we need to be apart. Like we're there's no future here. And also because at that time, I believed that I'll speak just for myself. I believed that I could inhabit that gray area like morally and that we would be able to both move on while we lived there. You know, like this was pre-Black Block era, you know? Mm-hmm. This was when I thought I didn't need that kind of space and distance. And again, like you can be friends with your exes, you can be cordial with your exes, you can get back together with your exes. All of these things are possible. But like us here at Just Break Up, we believe in taking a serious and committed separation, one in which like you don't imagine getting back together so that you two can become the people that you're meant to be outside of this relationship, so that you can fully close the door on the relationship, the past relationship, if there's ever possibility for the future. I really regret this because I now just from my lived experience on this show, like have such a different view on the aftermath of a breakup. And I really believe that we all benefit from letting go, from fully shutting things down. And that absolutely. Might sound cold, but let me put it this way to our letter writer. Like, your ex isn't being nice by saying that you might reconcile after you two have had time apart. Like, sure, it's kinder to say we are not getting back together. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And I think at this point, you're going to have to be nice to yourself and tell yourself you don't want to be with someone who doesn't commit to you.
For sure. Absolutely. And I know that you are in this belief that couples can take time apart and come back together and have things be happier and healthy. And yes, absolutely, I agree with that, right? Like that is a possibility for couples to do. And I know couples, one of whom is my co-host, right, where that was a thing that happened, right? Like they came back together and their relationship was really different. But just because that's possible doesn't mean that it's true in your circumstance, right? And I think that like sometimes we get held up on this thing of like, well, I firmly believe that you can be friends with your ex. And it's like, yes, hypothetically, I agree with that. Does that mean that I need to be friends with this particular ex? No, absolutely not. Right. And you sort of like, I want to say that like you accepting the fact that you two are not going to get back together doesn't mean that you need to dismantle that belief that it's possible for people to do it.
Right.
And so like, I want you to like continue to take a look at this relationship specifically, right? Like what is working well about it for you, which it sounds like not much at this moment, right? It sounds like there was cheating, there was a lot of arguing, and now you are in this relationship with this person who is telling you that you're on a break and that she doesn't see right now any possibility of you getting back together, right? Like that's not a great place for you to be in, right? Like that's not a super, and I'm speaking about this from like this relationship and your experience in it, and not like some hypothetical, do we believe in the possibility of love, right? Like, yes, I absolutely believe in the possibility of love. But for you in this moment, like this relationship is not serving you very well at all. And I don't think it's serving your girlfriend very well at all either, right? To be in this limbo, to be in this place where this infidelity has happened repeatedly, that you've struggled to find a way to forgive her, which again doesn't mean that you're incapable of forgiveness for things that people have done to you, right? This just means that you are not able to forgive her for this particular situation, right?
Yeah.
And I think so many times like we think that our actions or like what's happening to us in the moment are somehow part of like a broader narrative about who we are or what it means to be us. And sometimes we really have to situate what's happening in the context of what's actually happening, right? You
That's
can
powerful.
still believe that there is ability to forgive people after infidelity and say, and not in this instance, right? Like it is possible. It is not possible here. Right? You could even say like, it's really possible for people to go on breaks in relationships and then come back together at the end of them and have things be better and easier. And that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's happening in this relationship with these two people. So I just want to say that because like, I know that at least for me, I have struggled with the idea of how do I hold fast to things I believe to be true when in this particular instance, it feels like this thing isn't happening. But that's because you can believe that people can forgive after infidelity and also say, I also believe that people can't forgive after infidelity sometimes. It really depends on the situation, depends on the circumstances. Totally. And like, I just want you to sort of see this in a little bit more of a clearer way so that you can make decisions about this relationship that are going to be beneficial for you.
Yeah. And, Sam and I's advice, none of it, the primary goal of our advice is just to give those folks out there who are hurting or confused or grieving just a different way to look at something. That's how we move through these hard emotions, is we find new ways to look at it. It doesn't make those emotions go away automatically. This isn't going to make your breakup any, you're not going to get through it faster, but we move through things like sadness and grief and heartbreak by moving through it, by finding new perspectives, by experiencing different emotions through it. And another perspective I want to give you is I'm wondering if you can ask yourself, are you missing the relationship or are you missing what you thought the relationship was? Because the relationship was that she cheated on you.
That's real.
Throughout that whole time. And that is incredibly painful and unfortunate. And it was her breaking the trust and the agreement that you two had about your relationship, right? So you're missing what you thought the relationship was. And that's not your fault. That's not naive of you. You were in one relationship and you're upholding that relationship. But she was in another, right? She was in this truer and uglier version, right? That she was withholding from you. Like, I wonder if you start to shift the language you're using. Like, it's not, I wish we were still together. It's, I wish she didn't cheat on me. I wish she had been more trustworthy. I wish she wanted to be with me, right? Let's not uphold what was not, let's not uphold what we learned wasn't true about our relationship. You know, let's uphold the reality, you know, and put the relationship's actual flaws on trial here. It's not, oh my God, I want our perfect relationship back because the relationship wasn't perfect. On that note, really quickly, I just want to say, you know, it's okay if you, the way that the letter writer described the libido difference, you know, mismatched libidos, saying that his ex always wanted to, but that he started to fall into a pattern of comfort and feeling like I didn't need to as much. I just want to say to the letter writer, like, that's totally okay. You didn't lead her to cheating by denying her sex. Like, there's nothing wrong with mismatched libidos. Couples deal with that around the globe in 1,000 different ways that aren't going behind the back of your partner and breaking the agreement you had in your specific partnership, right?
Yep.
And there's 100 reasons why people have mismatched libidos or don't want to have sex as much. Like, it's not that you did anything wrong by slowing down the amount of sex you had. I just want to say that explicitly, you know, especially because there's a lot of toxic narratives out there about men and masculinity and the sex that they have and the virality of that sex. You did nothing to deserve her cheating on you.
No, absolutely. You did not cause it.
And you're allowed to not want to have sex.
For sure. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And she is allowed to talk about what that means for her and how that impacts your relationship. And it sounds like she didn't, right? Instead, she went out and found whatever it was that she neneeded from other people and other places. And I would
also even say, like, those things are disconnected. It's not like a cause and what's the word? Cause and effect. You know, like I said, like, people around the world deal with mismatched libidos in 1,000 different ways that aren't cheating. So I just don't want you to internalize that as like your fault.
For sure. And the cheating might have been about everything besides the mismatched libido, right? Like it may have been about all sorts of different things. And so, like, you didn't cause that to happen. And you're not causing her to want to take this break from you, right? Like, all of this stuff is there's so many different reasons why all of this stuff happens. And so, like, I just want to say to you that you deserve to be with someone who's going to want to fully be with you. You deserve to be someone who's not going to cheat on you. You deserve to be with somebody who is going to say to you when you say, can we get together? Yes, absolutely. Let's do it. Right. Like, that is something that you deserve. It's something that is out there for you. And I think that the amount of time that you spend allowing this person to sort of string you into a really gray area that doesn't feel good, that doesn't have clear parameters, is time that you're going to sort of miss in figuring out what it is you want and what sort of relationship you're looking for and how you want to think about going about doing that. Because it feels like there's not a lot of potential in what you currently have with this person. It doesn't sound like it's going to a place where it's going to be nutritious for you. It certainly isn't now in its current iteration, but it also sounds like that's not even something that is promised at this point, or not even something that is like hinted at, right? Like, it is, it is sort of like, this is going to be it for the foreseeable future. And you don't deserve that. You don't deserve to be in a place where you're scrounging for crumbs from somebody who this entire relationship has been like feasting on multiple different meals. I don't know if I like that metaphor.
Nope. We're going to abandon that one. And I just want to add too that your ex may be being black and white now and saying like, no, we're not together. And she said previously that you could get back together one day. You have to listen to what she's saying now.
Yep.
You have to respect yourself and respect what she's saying and say, there's no future here. I'm going to do what I need to move on from this instead of waiting in the holding pen of this other person's life. Like, you deserve that. You deserve to move forward.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, my darling, I know this is really hard, and Sam and I are with you in all of this pain. I promise you it's not going to feel like this forever. That is the one thing I am sure of, is that it's not going to feel like this forever. And so I hope you carry that with you in the days to come, and we hope that this helps.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for writing. We love you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. If you're interested in more content from us, or if you're interested in getting your episodes ad-free, you can support us on Patreon. If you support us on Patreon for as little as $5 a month, you'll get an additional bonus weekly episode. That's patreon.com/justbreakuppod.
You can slide into our DMs, send us your favorite relationship memes, but most importantly, you can submit your questions about all matters of the heart at justbreakuppod.com, which is also where you can find our merchandise.
Please remember to like, follow, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and review. This literally keeps our mics on and helps us reach more brokenhearted souls who need two random strangers giving them relationship advice.
Just Break Up is a production of Duvid Media, original music, recording, editing, producing all magical things by our good friend Spencer Worth Davis. Make sure to check out his podcast and his music on Spotify. And remember, sometimes we have to do the thing that hurts. We have to do the thing that we don't want to do, that we don't want to be true. Sometimes the next step or the next investment in our future and our happiness doesn't feel good, especially when we're in a gray area, especially when we don't want to move forward. Sometimes we have to push ourselves off that ledge a little into the unknown, into the future that we deserve, because the present isn't doing it for us. And if all else fails,
just break up.